No girl's better than what I got, though. Hey, it's like I won the lotto. No girl's better than what I got, though. Hey, it's like I won the lotto. No girl's better than what I got, though. Hey, it's like I won the...
Security fears mount after top secret Biden Belfast visit plan was found in the literal street. Apparently, one of the police officers or something dropped it. Pretty stupid if you ask me, but we'll go over the details right here. Welcome, guys. This is Marfoogle TV. We're going to cover current events, and of course, one of the first and probably the least crazy out of today is a security scare shadowed President Biden's trip to Northern Ireland on Wednesday after a top-secret document containing the itinerary for his visit to Belfast and information about his protective detail was found in the street. It says a passerby discovered the police paper, which detailed where the president was staying in Northern Ireland, as well as the phone numbers for the police service of Northern Ireland officers in his security detail. It said that the PSNI confirmed the security breach in a statement to the Irish Examiner. An investigation has commenced, and we have notified the senior information risk officer, the statement read. And then it said, we take the safety of visiting dignitaries, members of the public, and our offices of staff extremely seriously, and we will put the appropriate actions in place. So I don't know if this was like the notes for his babysitter or something, but apparently our president's top secret plans were just literally on the sidewalk, which is kind of weird. Is it a coincidence? Is it not? Is it somebody they put in charge of our president that's like our president? I don't know. We'll talk about this and much more going on with Russia, with China building a moon base and possibly trying to take over. So we'll be right back right after this. Nothing in this show should be considered legal, medical, or financial advice. The views of the callers can differ considerably and do not necessarily reflect my opinion, Dex's opinion, or anyone else who works with the show. You should always do your own research and consult with professionals. The internet is full of fake news, so please take everything with a grain of salt. If you have not already, it helps us out if you end up going through any of our affiliates, and it helps you out if you end up protecting yourself against cybercrime. NordVPN is one of the best and one of the easiest to use. If you do not have a virtual private network, it protects your IP address, which is your online identity, which actually connects to your real address and everything else. It also connects to you. If you know anything about how they are data logging and basically getting your profiles down, you can prevent that by having a VPN. Nord is, again, one of the easiest. Download it. It's like an on switch and off switch. All you have to do. Go to marfooglenews.com/VPN. Not only will you get a giant discount on this, but you will also be helping us. I appreciate your support, and I appreciate everyone that goes through any of our affiliates. Can't say thank you enough.
It's like I won the lotto. No girl's better than what I got, though. Hey, it's like I won the lotto.
All right, what is going on, guys? It is Adam, a.k.a. Marf, and this is Marfoogle News. Today, we're going to go over current events, everything that is happening. And if you're new here, remember you can always go over to marfooglenews.com to find a full bibliography of every single article, tweet, video, picture, document we're going to share here today. That we have the source for this if you want to check our work, or if you want to follow along with the second tablet or a device, you can. In fact, a lot of people watch this on their TVs and then end up watching or reading on their cell phones. So make sure to go click over here, Life After Ww3, Massive Conflict, and then you'll see every single article source that we have used. On top of that, there is a overflow. We'll talk about that at the very end. That is right at the bottom. That's all the stuff that could not fit into the show. So we will come back to that and circle back. So let's get right into it. Let's bring in my co-host/internet brother, Dex James. What is going on and how are you doing today?
Hello, Adam, and hello, Foogle fam. I'm doing just fine.
So the explosion at the Texas dairy farm, of course, we've talked about, we already covered this, but there is an update, and it was at first said to be a mass casualty event. Only one perished, I believe, but 20,000 cattle did. They say it was the worst event as far as cattle loss in a long time. It says that an explosion at a dairy farm has left one person in critically injured and caused a fire that killed an estimated 18,000 cattle. I believe that's been updated to 20. It says the Castro County Sheriff's Office says in a news release that a female worker at South Fork Dairy Farms was trapped inside of a building after the explosion and fire on Monday. Firefighters were able to rescue the woman, who was flown to UMC Hospital in Lubbock, and she is in critical condition. It says the cattle were in a holding area before being brought out in a milking when the fire occurred. Very few cows in the holding area survived the fire. It says the Animal Welfare Institute says that if the death estimate is correct, the fire is the deadliest involving cattle since the agency began tracking barns in 2013. So there could have been a worse event, but they didn't start tracking it until 2013, which is actually kind of weird. Why did they start tracking this in 2013? Like, oh, we got to start counting all these burnt cows. Maybe the Barbecue Association or something. I don't know. But this is luckily not. It doesn't even look like the one woman died. There was conflicting reports. There was reports that said up to 6 people, but apparently that was just guesstimates by folks that knew who worked at the factory. I guess I don't know. But luckily, only one is. Luckily, she is in critical condition and still alive. Praying for her, and I hope that she recovers. That's a really horrendous thing. It brings us up to, like, why are all of these different farm-related accidents happening? It's very, very odd. What do you guys think? Let me know your comments in the chat below or in the replay. And then we have thieves are now stealing cars via headlight can injection. So this is kind of a trip. They've always come up with new ways to steal your car. But this is something that will affect pretty much everybody, because this doesn't just affect one brand or the other, and it doesn't just affect certain types. It almost affects all of the computerized cars with fobs, or at least they can make it so it can. Essentially, they have come up with a thing that hacks, and it actually tells the car that it's a JBL speaker and makes the car thinks it's a Bluetooth speaker, then hacks into the CAN bus system, and then actually tells the car that it is a fob and is able to start your car and drive off. That's essentially how this breaks down. It says that car thieves have come up with yet another way to steal your car, and this one is rather creative. We'll refer to it as headlight hacking. But as Dr. Ken Tyndall and Canvas Automotive Labs described it in an extensive and technical blog post, it's a bit more complicated than that. Which it's not. It says thieves are using the central nervous system to their advantage by executing an attack referred to as a CAN injection. It's not actually an injection. It's injecting this technology. It says someone has developed a tool disguised as a JBL Bluetooth speaker and sold on the dark web that, when wired into a vehicle's control CAN bus, can impersonate the vehicle's key fob. The vehicle used as an example is a current generation Toyota RAV4, but it's vital to note that this vulnerability is not specific to any particular OEM or model. This is an industry-wide problem at the moment. Thieves are pulling bumpers and trim pieces away from the vehicle, which allows them access to the CAN bus near the headlight connector. Much of the vehicle's CAN bus systems will be found hidden deep inside the car, but since modern headlights are so smart these days, they require their own ECUs, which means they're going to be wired into the whole car's CAN bus system. So how cool your new headlights are actually screwing the entire car industry over right now. If you've ever had to, change headlights on a new car, it sucks. And now it's actually really screwing people over. I have had my Hondas. I've had one Honda in particular stolen 3 times. I've had another Honda stolen twice. I've had my cars stolen so many times. You would think that they would just knock on my door and say, "Hey, can we grab your keys?" If you've had your car stolen, then let me know in the comments down below. It definitely sucks. And if this has happened to you, let us know. This is something new. Dex, this is a pretty crazy way to do it. But there's no way to protect against it, is essentially what it says. You can't really defend against it.
Well, there are ways that they can fix against this particular hack. Like they could put an update out in the software in your cars to fix it, but then the hackers would just change the way they do it, and then they'd have to. It's a cat and mouse game. Ideally, there's other ways they can implement fixes for this in the future, but it has nothing to do with fixing your current car. It would only be on future cars. So the main thing to understand here is while this is an interesting hack, and it's even not that difficult. Like think about it in a parking garage during the day. Nobody's ever really around. There's a whole bunch of cars stacked up. It's pretty easy to sit around at somebody's front bumper that's up against a wall and sort of peel back what you need to get to the headlight. It's not unfathomable. It's certainly not easy to do in, say, your front yard or where everybody's visible and sees you. But I mean, they were chopping out, catalytic converters with no problem. So, this is definitely. But I guess the main point is the vulnerability, not just this one particular hack, but the fact that the entire car now is an integrated system, and it has multiple access points where you can actually get into the car. Some even say you can get into it wirelessly, and we've seen that some of the hacks with some of the even more advanced cars like Teslas and others have had interesting shenanigans go on with them. But
Stun gun.
let's not take yeah, exactly. But let's not take for granted that there's all sorts of vulnerabilities out there, especially in something as high tech as an automobile.
Yeah, they would go up to a Mercedes-Benz with a stun gun or one of these, stun things you can get at the gas station. They would stun it, and it would shock part of the system, and then it would essentially turn off the alarm. So there's all sorts of crazy things out there. And then China is to start building a lunar base out of the moon soil in 5 years, SCMP reports. It says that China plans to start building a lunar base in about 5 years, kicking off with bricks made of moon soil, according to scientists with ties to the project. The South China Morning Post reported. It says Ding Li Yun, a top scientist at Haozhong University of Science and Technology, told local media that the first brick would be made from moon soil during the Chang'e 8's mission around 2028. So many weird things happen right before 2030. It's odd. Mind you, all the stuff with Apophis in 2029 and 2036. It says China has previously said its lunar base will likely be powered by nuclear energy and will include a lander, hopper, orbiter, and rover, all of which would be constructed by the Chang'e 6, 7, and 8. So even the next few missions would just keep and continue doing this right now. It says it wasn't immediately clear in the interview if the entire base will be built with lunar soil. It says eventually building habitation beyond the Earth is essential not only for humanity's quest for space exploration, but for also China's strategic needs as a space power. It says Ding told the Chinese Science Daily in a separate interview, according to SCMP. The comments came as China held its first major conference in Wuhan to discuss building a manned lunar base, the report said. China's already sent probes to the moon, built its own space station, and is also setting its sights on Mars as it vies with the U.S. in particular to be the first to gain access to minerals and other resources found away from Earth. Now, they've joked about like helium-3 and things like that on the moon, but essentially they are now beating the U.S. in all sorts of stuff, if this is true. I mean, think about this. What does this make us look like when China has its own space station now? They're making a moon base, a lander and hopper and all this system that's going to be able to go back and forth. I mean, like, this is nuts. Dex, how are we letting... I don't know how any of the world is letting China advance this far. Everybody knows it's super bad if they get, world dominance. Why the heck is all these different areas they are heading up in?
Yeah, and I just think about how much we have tried to accelerate, especially under the previous administration, tried to accelerate our advancements to getting to the moon. And I think that this is sort of not just who gets some sort of rover or some other device there, which all these countries have been doing over the many years, but who actually gets there and puts boots on the ground. first is probably going to be the lion's shareholder of the value of what that may bring. And we don't want to be left in the dark, so to speak, or left with no access there because our adversaries take control of that space.
And they say that there is a source of waste-free nuclear energy that could meet global energy demands for 250 years. But experts fear nations may clash over the extraction of potentially hundreds of billions of dollars worth of resources. So will it be a war over moon resources? Like they're now going to weed the moon dry? And then, of course, this last couple weeks, you had Elon Musk posting about his Starship, the supposed ship that's going to be carrying 1 million people by 2030 or something, to Mars. I mean, like, this is crazy to live through, and there's a lot of doubters. There's a lot of people that say, oh, it's just BS and it's not true. Well, I guess the argument will be settled pretty soon here if regular civilians are going to space here in just a few years. I mean, that's the thing. It's not like it's 50, 60 years off when some of us are dead. This is in the next decade that all of this stuff is going to happen. We're so close to a world conflict right now, and then all of this is happening at the same time. It's sus. It's super sus. Thank you on YouTube. Thank you, guys. Thank you, LOD Will. I appreciate you. Zen Wen. Thank you. Neil Nelson. Thank you. Of course, Carol. Stephen McMahon. Thank you all for the super chats. And then Nana of Montana, thank you for the support this week. And then Heath Spear, thank you from Australia. It says, thank you, love Australia, love you all. That was very sweet. Thank you so much, Heath. And I appreciate you. Who do we have in chat? We have some old school Foogle fam. JT, hey, what's going on? We have LLCC. Let's see here. Vicky Bruick. We have Engineered to Succeed. James Garcia. What is happening? Stephen McMahon, nice to see you. Let's see here. Darren Schrader. Hi, Zen Wen. Kerry Ray. And we have Podcast Fan. It's nice to see you back. Jack, my 77 Honda 4-cylinder. I don't think people want it. They gave it back with gas. Phil Billy, thank you. Joseph Yanni. Brian loves bacon. What's happening? Chadwick. We have Willie Hunt and Love God's Plan. Hey, God bless, man. Wages World, Tennessee Mountain Girl, and Stay Tuani. Jake DeWitt, and of course Be Real Beast. Nice to see you, Del Val. We have all of the peeps in here. Do we have some of the? I kind of miss some of the regulars though. We've had a lot of people have had a lot going on. I haven't seen Able Bodied in a while. All right. And then NYPD reboots cyborg police dog after backlash, and again, civil rights advocates warn against high-tech hound. It says DigiDog, the NYPD robot pooch, is back, and the department leaders promise it's not the dystopian surveillance nightmare that it was made out to be the first time New Yorkers got a look at it. 2 years after the $74,000 robot canine program landed the NYPD in the doghouse with civil rights advocates, DigiDog, also known as Spot, got a new leash on life on Tuesday as the city announced it was bringing it back. Police Commissioner Key Chant Sewell noted that the NYPD's long history with technology and is, again, the first police force to put in place a 911 call system and among the first to use fingerprints and mugshots. Oh, so that makes it good, right? It said New Yorkers will be kept abreast of how the cyber mutt and the 2 other tech tools that are a part of the pilot programs will be used. We want the public to know that the use of these technologies will be transparent, consistent, and always done in collaboration with the people that we serve. It says this is Eric Adams says, meanwhile, was more critical, noting that the previous administration let objections to DigiDog win the day. That is not how I operate, he said. I operate on whatever is best for the city. DigiDog is out of the pound. DigiDog is now part of the toolkit we are using. So I said on Twitter yesterday that essentially if this DigiDog comes and opens my door, which they can, we don't have, I think, is there a picture in this one? I'll show you guys a picture of it. These are the ones with the arms, or at least the one that I saw. And then there's also ones with cameras. There's ones that can hold tablets. There's ones that can hold 50 cals. They're very, very creepy. I believe the original shows you here, but we might get some ads here. So let me show you. Let's see. So I'll show you. Well, I guess I could go to my Twitter and just show you. They have these dogs, and they are digital. And most of you have already seen this here. So let's go to Duck, go. Digi dog. Yeah, these things. These are. So there's a conversation here to be had. These things have an arm that can open doors. Okay, this arm right here can reach up and open doors and go into buildings. It has cameras, it has sensors, it has, I'm assuming it has infrared and all this sorts of stuff. I mean, really, they can outfit it with whatever they want. We see that, here's the thing, for your convenience, they have pushed this in to, being regular use kind of stuff. And how they're doing it is in cities like LA. I think it's LA that has these robot delivery services that, these cute little carts that deliver food. And they all have names on them like Thomas or Billy or something like that. And they roll down the street and everybody's watching this and laughing at them on TikTok. Well, the thing is this is what normalizes this kind of technology to roll down the street. And then when the police use it, they're like, oh, it's no big deal. We already have Billy and Thomas and they're delivering food and they make it into some sort of cute thing. This isn't cute. This is a robot that can open the door, bust into a place and take your life. And say if the operator's having a bad day, say if an operator goes postal, he could take somebody's life with some of these. Now, these are not equipped with 50 cal. That's coming next. And this is something this is going to happen. I mean, there's no way around it. These are the Boston Dynamic dogs, and they are literally being turned into weapons. So don't think that the police force is a way that they bring in new stuff and then end up introducing things like this, like New York said, the first use of mugshots and fingerprints in the 911 system. What he's stating there is this is going to be something permanent, and it's going to go all over the United States. You're going to see these robot dogs everywhere. And that scares the crap out of me and most people that have common sense about where this is headed. Slaughterbot soon, Sheldon Bosch. Kay Parker Fraser says, hello, Adam, Dex, Mods, and Foogle fam. Thank you guys for supporting our channel. Thank you guys. I appreciate that. Thank you for supporting Independent. Christina Faith, Oki Khan, Simon Martin Anthony, Skynet. Yeah, exactly. B-Roll Beast, there's not a nice freaking me out. Modern day trap shooting ammo at 111. God bless. Hey, Adam, checking in on Benjamin Fly By Me. May he rest in peace. Longtime viewer from South Carolina. He introduced me to the Foogle fam while in Colorado. Benjamin Fly By Me passed. I'm sorry to hear that. So I guess we lost a Foogle family member. If anybody can get me information on them, I would love to know what happened. And then Skynet about to go live, peeps. YFG. Yeah, isn't that freaky? Yeah, people think Skynet's just Terminator. Dex, if you saw one of these, would you iRobot it straight into the Grammys?
I would avoid it at all costs. I don't trust that. And I'm going to be expecting to see all sorts of reports come out about how to defeat these things. Although I will say this, if they're being used by the authorities, they're certainly going to put laws in place that make touching them just as bad, if not worse, than, you touching a real police officer. So they're pretty much going to be protected. Although we see a lot of the cities where this stuff goes in, that those minor types of incidents just get thrown out and you don't get any time for it.
I've just noted all these people, this picture was just basically right at crotch level. All these people are probably like, hey, my crotch is in that photo. Let's see here. Look at the sensors on this thing. This looks like something that's on Hawaii looking at the stars. But no, it's looking at you guys. And then before we move on, just a quick reminder, go over to EMP Shield if you want to protect yourself, your cars, your trucks, your boats, your motorcycles against an EMP. You can protect against an EMP strike, all 3 phases, and you can protect your car, vehicles, generators, ham radios, houses, boats, all that kind of stuff from CMEs as well. If there's a Carrington level event, or when there is a Carrington level event, if you have this, it will ground the signal in less than 500 trillionths of a second before it's able to fry your car or other device. Go to marfooglenews.com/EMP. This is the same company that's outfitting agencies like DHS, DOD, and the DEMSO team. They're, of course, prepping themselves. Nobody's prepping us. So you're going to have to do it yourself if you want to protect yourself and keep your stuff running. marfooglenews.com/EMP. And that will help us out and get you a huge $50 off discount per device. So if you have multiple vehicles or a vehicle, a generator, a home that you want to do, you can get, again, $50 off per device, and that stacks on top of any sale they ever do. So remember that. And then we have international anger as airstrikes kills dozens in Myanmar. And this isn't something out of Battle Royale or something. This is real. It says dozens of people in central Myanmar were killed in airstrikes on Tuesday, according to local media reports and witness contacted by AFP. The United Nations and Western powers condemned the attacks and demanded accountability. The Southeast Asian country has been in chaos and its economy is in tatters since the military seized power in February of 2021 coup. UN Rights Chief Volker Turk said that he was horrified by the deadly airstrikes whose victims, he said, included school children performing dances, with the global body calling for those responsible to be brought to justice. It says the death toll from the early Tuesday morning strike on remote Konbalu Township in Sagaling region is unclear, but at least 50 fatalities and dozens of injuries were reported by the BBC Burmese and the Irrawaddy and Radio Free Asia. The United Nations, while not confirming a toll, said several civilians perished, and with Turk accusing Myanmar's military of once again disregarding clear legal obligations to protect civilians in the conduct of hostilities. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres said strongly condemns the attack by the Myanmar Armed Forces today, according to a statement by his spokesman Stephanie Dujarric. Gutierrez reiterates that the call for the military to end the campaign of violence against the Myanmar population throughout the country, the spokesman said. Washington said it was deeply concerned about the airstrikes. There's constantly some sort of turmoil going on in these countries, and it's really sad, especially to hear about the kids performing a dance and then they get airstrike. Dex, do you have comments about Myanmar?
Yeah, I mean, this is
that's not sorry guys, sorry, that's not us anymore. That's the whole, we just changed the thing now. I changed it so it wouldn't be touched. I apologize. That's twice now. It's gone off by itself. I will fix it. Hold on, I'm just gonna unplug the damn thing because it's dirty and it's stuck or something. Sorry you guys, if you don't know what a Stream Deck is, this thing is, if the buttons get stuck then it does this. I so apologize. This is a Stream Deck, and if these little buttons get stuck then it just starts going off. Sorry about that, guys. Dex, so sorry I interrupted you like that.
No
Go
worries. Unstick that sticky button, but it's all good. Hey, this is kind of crazy. Yeah, this is kind of crazy with what's going on in Burma. Obviously, since the coup there and the takeover with the military, things have been in turmoil, as they say. But it's one thing when you see militaries moving on, other militaries are moving, and we don't necessarily know the full story here, but at least from what they're telling us and what's coming out with them striking these areas that are basically creating massive amounts of potential casualties in civilians and school children and things like that. That's just sloppy. That's just horror. That's either evil or it's sloppiness on the military's part. And it sounds much more like it's the former. I mean, the first, the evilness, because that's just. How do you do that? And unless they're intentionally wanting to do it, and if they are, then that's just absolute evil. So, we'll keep watching this. This is not, This is something that's very localized to them. It's not like this is one threat to another nation like we deal with the UKR and Vlad and those strikes. Those are totally different. That's conflict across lines. That's a big deal. This is internal in that country, and this type of activity and action is just not something that you normally you would see even in overtaking of power, with the exception of if somebody's doing something very evil like cleansing, as they would call it, or doing something towards specific groups that they want to harm, and that's just horrible.
Yes, it is. And then Taiwan says that China curtailed plan for no-fly zone after complaint. Dex, do you want to go over this? I'm gonna fix
this
real quick.
no-fly zone. So this story changed pretty quickly. So China came out and said, "Hey, we want a multi-day no-fly zone in the I think it was the northern area. It was a significant area around Taiwan, and it was something that was just and they were doing it for like 3 days, and it's all next week. And they were basically saying, we're running drills over here, so this is going to be a no-fly zone, and you can't fly here." Now, Taiwan has come out and said, hey, they've actually backtracked, and they convinced them after Taiwan said, hey, this is not right. You can't do that. And now they've cut down the no-fly zone, I think, to just a couple of hours on one day, or maybe half of a day, 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. over 3 days was the original, and now it's been cut back significantly. So the first part of the story, though, the fact that Xi was actually going to create a no-fly zone for multiple days is part of, that in and of itself is kind of a big deal. Now that it's been cut back, it's interesting to question why. So did it come up because what Taiwan is saying, because they complained, because they lobbied and said, hey, don't do this? Or did something else happen? Like what really caused them to back off or make a U-turn, as some are calling it, and saying, hey, we're not going to do it now?
Yeah, did they get threatened secretly by somebody else? I highly doubt it from our administration. What ended up happening here? Did something happen behind the scenes? Did they have somebody hostage or something? Like, again, it said that they had said that China dialed down plans for a no-fly zone near the island after it complained about risks of flight safety and a rare possible instance of backtracking by Beijing as tensions between the two sides simmer. That's a trip that they were going to do any kind of no-fly zone, right? I mean, we're in a really crazy place right now. And then photo catches Taiwan pilot with a patch of the Winnie the Pooh getting punched in the face. A jab at China's Xi as Beijing ups the pressure. This is no joke. It's like if they were mad about the Taiwan patch on the Tom Cruise jacket, this is war right here. If you guys don't know, many people have compared Winnie the Pooh to Xi. In fact, there's plenty of memes that show side-by-sides, which you can't actually tell which one's which. I had a really hard time. One of them I had to be like, well, because, especially if you're colorblind and you can't tell what yellow or, shades of yellow, I was having a really hard time. But this one, I think the one on the left is Winnie the Pooh, or that's Xi. I don't know how they would make such a realistic Xi on a patch, though. That is quite wild. Dex, that's pretty funny, actually. They definitely haven't lost their sense of humor.
Yeah, that's pretty classic that he's wearing it, and even more so that somebody was able to capture that image. In the original article, and that one's a little blurry. In the original article, is a much clearer image. But yeah, that's pretty funny for sure.
Yeah. So I hope that more and more people get that patch, and I hope it ends up a flag at some point. But we'll see. We will see. And then Russia tests intercontinental ballistic missile. Its warheads hits target in Kazakhstan. So the Russian Ministry of Defense has test-fired an intercontinental ballistic missile, its warhead hitting the target at a test site in Kazakhstan. I think that's where Borat's from. It says that Russian Ministry of Defense has said that the purpose of the launch was to test advanced combat equipment for intercontinental ballistic missiles. This launch made it possible to confirm the accuracy and design of technical solutions used in the development of new strategic missile systems. It says RA Novosti specified that the training warhead of the missile hit a prospective target at a test site in Kazakhstan. It says later Russian media published a video of the launch of Russian ballistic missile. Video shows the launch of the missile from the test site in the Russian Federation. While the timing of this is probably most important, obviously not a good time for anybody to be launching nuclear missiles or intercontinental ballistic missiles. Dex, do you think that this was a message? It doesn't seem like, they usually say that these are messages, a show of strength. But this one kind of was quiet.
Well, and let's not forget, we reported about 2 weeks ago about the change with the New Start, where they're no longer going to tell us if they're doing tests. So this launch could have been viewed as something that it wasn't, because they probably didn't pick up the phone and call us and say, hey, we're testing. They said they weren't going to do that anymore. And it was specific to nukes, but in this case, this is an ICBM, so it carries them. So it sort of falls into that category, right? So, the interesting part is we probably had to deal with this in real time and watch it launch and try to determine where it was going as quickly as we could, as opposed to them telling us, hey, we're going to do a test launch. Don't freak out.
Yeah, they didn't find out until after, I'm assuming. So any one of these missile launches they could see as an attack. Luckily, it was headed towards a test site in Kazakhstan and not somewhere else. Wages World, it looks like we have Wages here. Ilea, hey, nice to see you. Beer Juice, we have Scrappy Dappy Doo, Lady L, Angel Wings, Michigan Lifestyle, Comet Moon, Vicky Brook, nice to see you. Diddy Moose. We have all sorts of awesome Foogle family members. Thank you guys for making it. And then Ukraine has something to surprise Russian warships with. According to Ukraine's defense ministry, says Russia is unaware of all of the circumstances surrounding the sinking of the Moskva missile cruiser, which could lead to a, quote, new surprise for Russian ships in the Black Sea. It says that I would like to very much share the details that I am aware of, but we have an agreement with Oleksiy Nazarapapa, commander of the Ukrainian Navy, and thanks to his efforts and his team, this sinking of the Moskva cruiser happened. We cannot disclose details at this time. Some aspects are still unknown to our enemy, which means that we can still pose another surprise for them at sea. Another Cotton, initially refusing the word vzr or explosion, used a bang instead. However, a kofpok also means cotton, and this has since become a meme related to their warships. We are just waiting for the right moment to repeat this story. Yeah, so this was again super confusing as far as reading the damn thing, so my mind is all flustered, but basically they're saying that they have a surprise for them, that they have something up their sleeve for the Russian Navy. Go ahead, Dex.
Well, I don't know if it's that they really have a surprise or if they're just trying to make hay. This event happened back in April of 2022, so it was last year when the Moskva was sunk. But at the time, a lot of us and a lot of the speculation was
the U.S.
And I think even some things leaked out that the U.S. actually gave them the coordinates and the information and lots of other support. So I think their secret, weapon, so to speak, is NATO. It's the U.S. It's not like they've got something up their sleeve. But the real question is do they really have something they think they're going to do here, or are they just chest beating? Because this is coming out of UKR media. This is straight and it's coming from the military. These are quotes from their military. So, commanders and whatnot. So all of that, set aside, on one hand, it could be, sort of a scare tactic to the fact that there's now like 10 ships sitting in the Black Sea or more. It may even be more than that now from Vlad's side. But the interesting thing is, if all of those ships have been sitting there and back in April they sunk one, they haven't sunk anything since. So, what's going on? Like, are they just bluffing here, or do they really have something to do?
Well, sorry, I read that, and it's not like I read it pretty accurately. I mean, it wasn't perfect, but Scooby-Doo right says, what? Like, you can read it yourself, and you'll say,
confusing.
What? Like, look at how they wrote this. Some aspects are still unknown to our enemy, which means that we can still pose another surprise for them at sea, another cotton. It says, use for the word zero for explosion, use kufla, a bang instead. So they said a bang instead of an explosion. And then it says kofluk also means cotton. And this has since become a meme related to their warships. Why would a writer put that in there? That's just so confusing to put in there if you're not, like, it was like somebody who is Russian maybe that knows the meme and just like threw it in there. There's a funny meme and then just keeps going on about it. Like, oh, what does the meme have to do with the writing? It doesn't make sense. I guess maybe if you knew what the meme is. But then, if you read it out loud, it's hard to communicate that in some way that can be grasped. Basically, they're it's all talk. I mean, they don't. The U.S. helped them take the Moscow. I'm absolutely sure of it. Go ahead, Dex.
I think maybe it's possible this got lost in translation.
Oh, yeah.
Like maybe they didn't put this thing out in English. And whoever translated it did a horrible job. Because I totally agree. It's super confusing. But at the end of the day, if the headline is what the headline is, like they got nothing, or these are just words.
Yeah. Well, watch out for their cotton. It might shrink in the dryer, but it will be a bang. It won't be an explosion. All right. This is really one of my favorite parts. If you guys haven't already, make sure to go over and check this out. The people that have already gotten their Energy Flex 1500s or their Kodiak X2s, they will tell you these things are absolutely awesome. Most folks are either going to go for the Kodiak X2 or the Flex 1500 or even the smaller LT. But the Flex 1500 is a solar generator that is, of course, you can hook up to solar panels, get power from the sun, unlimited power, and it can store as much as you really want because you can decide how many batteries you want. Again, you can expand this up to 96 batteries. So you can either click in like Legos, one battery, take it with you, put it in your truck, put it in your car, and go where you need and use power. Or you can hook up to 96 batteries and make this an entire wall of power. That, of course, is also possible with the Flex UPS Rapid Charger, which turns it into an uninterrupted power supply, meaning that you can plug things in. When the power goes out, a storm happens, everything goes down, then it will automatically flip over to your solar power. This is an awesome system, not only because of that, because it can be altered. It can be modded to where it basically changes the overall performance of it. This is going to save lives in the event of an SHTF, and it's probably going to save a whole lot of comfort in the event of just storms. Like, this is just good for regular blackouts. If you lose your power, most people have in a storm or two. Depending on where you live, you probably lose your power a lot, especially in some of the storm-likely places in the United States. But again, these are made like tanks. These things are no joke. They're very, very, very amazing. Again, that's marfooglenews.com/energy. You'll get a special discount with the code Marfoogle. You do have to use that code Marfoogle to get that discount, so make sure to do so. And then also check out all of the accessories that go along with this. These are stealth. They're absolutely quiet. Nobody is going to hear you from 3 blocks away. So that's where these come and play. Most of you already know. Most of you want one. Most of the time, it's an issue if you can afford one yet. With something like this, it's an investment. It's something that serves a huge purpose. Some people are even using it to power certain things in their house so they have a lower power bill and things like this. There's a lot of things that you can do with these systems, so definitely pretty awesome to be able to do that without relying on the grid. All right, and then that's marfooglenews.com/INERGY, energy. And make sure to use the code Marfoogle. That helps us out. We are independent. We don't have a multi-channel network. We have the Foogle fam, and that's it. So thank you guys, and I appreciate all of you. All right, and then we have Austrian government confirms that it will arrest Putin if he arrives. I talked about how South Africa president basically said, if he comes here, well, we're going to pick him up from the airport. We're going to feed him dinner. We're going to give him a back rub, and then we're going to give him a ride right back to the airport. Even though the ICC warrant says that countries like South Africa are supposed to pick him up and take him to jail because he now has a criminal warrant for wars against, crimes against humanity or whatever. Austrian government, on the other hand, they say, no, we're going to arrest him, or at least that's what's being said. It says Caroline Edstadler, the Minister of EU and the Constitution in the Austrian government, has confirmed that Russian President Vladimir Putin will be arrested if he visits the country, which I doubt will happen, so it's kind of no point. It says Austria will fulfill its obligations under international and criminal law, she added. Earlier, the Austrian Foreign Ministry said that it would fulfill its obligations as parties to the Rome Statute and arrest Putin, who will be extradited to the International Criminal Court if he decides to come to the country. It's kind of like it's a null point. He's not going to go to Austria. Basically, they're chiming in and says, well, we'll arrest him. Dex, I mean, do you disagree? Does he have any reason to go to Austria?
Yeah, I don't think he does. I think it's probably more likely for the countries that, are BRICS members or other locations where he may have plans or, as we'll talk about later, an obligation to appear where there's more of a risk. But like any of these other countries that he's got no business in or no plans, and it's not like they have plans. He never said he's going to Austria, but I think they're just, saying, hey, we're going to hold up to it because we don't like Putin. So that's their position. Yeah,
well, I guess they're trying to set an example and, lead for other countries. I don't really know many people from Austria. I think the only person I know, isn't that where Survival Lily is from? Is she Austrian? I believe she is. Ilea, do you know? I know you watch Survival Lily. I know a bunch of people here do. She's great. Is she in Austria? B. Blake says, what about Brandon's crimes? Hypocrisy. Yeah, absolutely. What president couldn't be pulled up on that kind of stuff? Even the ones we favorite, right? Every president in the world, it's mind-blowing to think that they take actual innocent lives. Say, do you think that, I mean, we'll just give a hypothetical, a 17-year-old teenage girl that is completely innocent, probably a cheerleader or something. Do you think that if that 17-year-old cheerleader saw some sort of crime or some politician doing something, do you think that she wouldn't be wiped off the map if it wasn't for national security? Are you kidding? Do you think a 9-year-old kid, some kid that sees the wrong thing, he's either going to be put in Guantanamo Bay for the rest of his life or he's going to be taken out? Do you think that they haven't taken out, and this is just our country, we're talking about every country in the world, their presidents make decisions to take innocent lives because they may know too much or it's a liability or tying up loose ends? You think that that's only in House of Cards or in movies? That's real. So then when you think about that, the conscience of that has to be at the person who signs off on it. And most of the time we think it's the president. Who knows? It's the cabinet or whatever, these people that make these suggestions or put it away. People think House of Cards was like a complete fiction. There's a lot of that stuff that goes on, and we know this because the classified stuff has come out from years before, and it keeps happening. It's always about 20, 30 years we wait, and we find out all this nasty stuff about everything. It's disgusting. We're not an evolved people. We're still people. That's why when people think that there's not going to be a war, are you kidding? You think because of all this like online therapy and everybody going, I had trauma in my childhood, everybody's going to have world peace now that TikTok's here? No. Don't think so. Putin arrest warrant spanner the works in the works for South Africa. South Africa said on Wednesday an international arrest warrant for Russian President Vladimir Putin over the Ukraine war was a spanner in the works ahead of a BRICS summit in the country in August. Pretoria, which has close ties with Moscow, has been faced with a diplomatic dilemma since the International Criminal Court issued an arrest warrant against Putin in March. The Russian president is due to attend the summit of the BRICS, a bloc which groups together Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, in August. But the host nation is a member of the ICC, and it would be expected to make the arrest of Putin if it steps foot in the country. It says all heads of state would be expected to attend the summit, But now we have a spanner in the works in the form of this ICC warrant. Vincent Magloire, President Cyril Ramaphosa's spokesman, told the press briefing on Wednesday. What that dictates is there is to be further engagements in terms of how that is going to be managed, and those engagements are underway. Once they've been concluded, the necessary announcements will be made. Well, we've already heard what they're going to do. They're going to pick him up, give him dinner, give him a foot rub, back rub maybe if he's lucky, and then they're going to drop him back off at the airport. The continental powerhouse South Africa has refused to condemn the invasion of UKR, which has largely isolated Moscow on the international stage, saying that it wants to stay neutral and prefers dialogue to the end of the conflict. Earlier this year, it held a controversial joint military exercise with Russia and China, which critics cite as evidence of a tilt towards the Kremlin. Evidence? Are people just stupid? Who wrote this? Evidence? Their military is drilling with other militaries going, let's pretend to kill that American. And they're like, yeah, he might be tilting that way a little bit. Meanwhile, they'll go, if somebody says, oh, well, I don't know if I think I have some questions about the American narrative. You're carrying Putin's water. What about the guy who's literally carrying Putin's water right behind him all the way to the airport after they pick him up with the ICC warrant? Give me a break. South Africa's ties with Russia date back decades when the Kremlin backed the ruling African National Congress in its fight against apartheid. The ICC warrant has been the cause of political tumult in the country. The leading opposition party, the Democratic Alliance, called for Putin to be arrested and for the ICC to force the government's hand. But leftist parties, including the South African Communist Party, a close ally to the ruling National Congress, have urged the government to welcome the Russian leader and pull out of the ICC instead. Well, no duh. Dex, do you want to go over the Russia preparing evacuation plan for Rosatom employees from occupied Zaporizhia?
Sure, but just one comment on the South Africa issue. So it seems to me, using the quote spanner in the works, and by the way, that's not a U.S. term, that's an international term. Here we would call it a wrench in the cog or a monkey wrench. But it sounds to me like what they're saying is because they had this meeting set up and because the heads of state at BRICS had to be there, that they created this warrant to prevent that meeting. And because the meeting was supposed to be in South Africa. So the way I'm sort of reading between the lines here is they're suggesting that this was fabricated, not necessarily a lie, but it was created to stop that meeting. It was created as a way of forcing that meeting or making it very difficult for them to have that meeting. That's kind of an interesting spin. And of course, this is coming from the same country where we listened to that military. We read about that military leader saying, I'm going to, like you said, I'm going to drive them, pick them up in the airport, and I'm going to bring them there and bring them back. But, that's just one person. It's not, he doesn't control the law. The law there says they actually have to arrest them or they need to leave the ICC. So kind of an interesting point of view from their perspective. And the fact that it wasn't just that he was planning to go there. There's an actual BRICS meeting that's very important that he's supposed to attend as one of the heads of state, that all of those heads of state are meeting. So anyway, we have talked quite a bit about Zaporizhia. That's the largest nuclear plant in Europe, pretty much. It's huge, and it's one of the largest. It's been set up where when Vlad's occupied it, they have, according to what's being reported here, and it's been reported this way for a long time, they are shelling from that location because they know no one will return fire. Because if they do return fire, it causes damage. And that actually happened early on, and there was a ton of damage. And so that pretty much doesn't happen anymore, except for the fact that they still shell from that location because they know nobody's going to touch them. Like, who's going to want to fire back at that and completely, destroy the country if there's a massive meltdown? But in the process of that, they're actually preparing evacuation plans, is what they're reporting. So this is the largest plant. They're talking about how they're creating these evacuation plans specifically for Rosatom. Remember, Rosatom is the company that we the U.S. pays half of the bill for Rosatom to build the nuclear weapons for Vlad. So that's $2 billion a year they spend on it. We give them $1 billion a year to buy uranium from it. But anyway, those Rosatom employees that are there running the plant, looks like they're planning to potentially to have to evacuate them. So that's interesting insight at the moment. We'll have to see what actually comes from it and if anything really happens there. But it has long been, for many months now, used as a shield.
And it will probably continue as. So somebody commented and said, what was this? This was says the U.S. isn't that dumb, in my opinion. The U.S. probably wants China to get to the moon so the U.S. can make an excuse to implement space weapons. The U.S. been itching to deploy space weaponry. Ray, the way my opinion is that they've already deployed it. So has China, so has Russia. That we've seen the examples. We just didn't know what the actual weapon being used was. And that there's no evidence because it's a weapon we've never even seen. Tianjin, I think, was a test. That was a really crazy event. The 2 amphibious assault carriers, I think that those might have been the result of a space weapon. But yeah, I get what you're saying. And it says, Drew O'Connor says, thank you for everything you and Dex do. Remember, stay strapped, stay frosty, and keep up the good work. Well, thank you, Drew O'Connor. Thank you for the super chats. Thank you, Be Real Beast. They are not nice, freaking me out. Okay, that's what I read it wrong last time. Jalen Mason, hey Marf, blessings. Hey Jalen, nice to see you. It's really good to see you. And then Stephen McMahon, for this war against Vlad, Zelensky got money from U.S. to buy oil. He skimmed $400 million off the top and then bought the oil from none other than Vlad. In this war against Vlad, Zelensky got money from the U.S. to buy oil and skimmed $400 million off the top. Bought oil from none other than Vladsky. I will have to fact check that. I bet you're right. Dex, do you know, is that something we can verify? Zelensky got money from U.S. to buy oil, then took $400 million to buy oil from Vlad? Nothing surprises me.
We could probably find a fact checker that says it's not true and then use that as verification.
Because fact checkers aren't fact checkers. They're people in robes in their home being called and told what's right. Okay. Chubruff, I don't know why they're wearing robes. That's just something I add. That's the visual picture. I just see some guy that's like, oh, okay, all right, sure. Okay, Joe, okay, what do I say? Okay, it's a... You didn't say the word, but everybody can see you saying the word. Oh, it was a silent K? Okay. I'll put that in there. Say, not probable, waiting for more sources. Okay, all right, Joe. All right, nice. Can I come to dinner? No, not yet. Okay, I'm waiting on that day. Me and Susan are waiting. Okay, all right. You're going to call back, right? You said you'd call back. Hello? Chubarov says that Russia's placing nuclear weapons in Crimea would be a step to nuclear war. Speaking to the station on April 8th, Chubarov pointed to the lively debate that arose after Russian dictator Vladimir Putin said that he would place tactical nuclear weapons in Belarus, where they would threaten Poland and Lithuania. However, if such weapons are placed in the occupied Crimea, I believe Russia will reveal all of its cards, Chubarov said. It would be a direct threat to NATO members in this region, such as Turkey, Bulgaria, and Romania. These countries would become Russia's targets. It would be, I believe, although I am not a military person, direct preparations for a nuclear war. We would be heading towards a nuclear war. So this person is essentially stating that this would be this would literally be, preparing for a nuclear war. Putin announced his nuclear threats on March 25th, saying the move would be made in response to the UK, saying it would supply UKR with ammunition with depleted uranium. Remember, he said that there was a nuclear content or a nuclear, what was it? He used a special word. He used a technicality. A nuclear aspect to whatever the ammunition
nuclear technology, I think.
Yeah, there would be a component. That's what it was. A nuclear component to the depleted uranium shells, which anybody that's looked into the uranium shells knows that they're horrible. They've caused cancers. They've caused all sorts of things where they've been used. They're horrid things to use, but they're not nukes. But Russia basically said, you guys are using this, so, we're going to respond to it and essentially put them in Belarus. Belarus has been doing a lot of strange things. Lukashenko has been doing a lot of weird things, saying a lot of weird things like, we'll only join Russia if we get directly attacked. And then it's like they've set the stage for something to happen to Belarus from one of their border countries or somewhere else, or one of their NATO border countries. It's weird. What do you guys think? Let me know. Dex, what do you think about this? Like, it's creepy to think that folks are talking about nuclear war, but that's unfortunately kind of where it's at right now.
It certainly is. Now, this is Chubarov, who is, I believe, a politician out of UKR. So it's his point of view. It's not, and as he said, he's not a military person. But at the same time, as we look at why they publish certain things, why the media rolls with certain stories, a lot of times they tell us one thing, and then all we got to do is wait, and then later you'll see it. We talked about quite a bit about Belarus, and then later we moved they moved tacticals into there. So now they're saying, hey, if they start to move nukes into Crimea, then that's going to be the next step, or the biggest warning sign that nuclear conflict is next. Well, wait and see. If we're reporting on this in like a week or two, or that's his next move, he starts announcing, well, I'm going to put stuff there. That's kind of insightful, at least in the sense that a lot of times this stuff is foreshadowed. Like, they tell us something before they actually do it.
Well, there's always something there. So we'll see what happens. And then we have Ukrainian soldiers dig trenches in case of retreat from Bakhmut. Some more trench digging. By the way, we've seen trenches now in 5 different countries, and they're making gigantic trenches. None as big as the Russia's 50-mile long one, but you can see them in satellite photos. My friend actually has this program, and I forgot if it's DSC-9 or something like that, but it's apparently a program that was made by college students that has access, and it grabs the most updated satellite photos that are publicly available. And it's in beta right now. I don't know if any of you guys can correct me on DSC-9, I think. But he was showing me photos, and I was kind of in disbelief how many trenches there were. And there are images that are blurred out. There's images, parts of NATO's borders that are blurred out. And I thought that was interesting, or at least on this one it was. So I thought that was kind of weird. Like, do they know that people are able to access those so freshly that they're blurring them out because of war purposes? But I just I wonder, I still wonder if we're still going to get a article in the next few weeks, if not sooner, about Finland digging these trenches. As we know, we got some info from Fugel Fam, and I believe them that they have already begun trenches in Finland. Which, that says a lot. If they're doing anti-tank measures, if they're setting up this stuff, that it is because they potentially see the risk of something happening, or they know about a future thing that's going to happen. And what's weird is all these leaks got put out, and we covered a majority of them yesterday. If you haven't seen yesterday's show, that's a really good one to watch, because it goes over almost all of the leaks that were current. And it may have changed things. You also wonder, like, did this get put out because they know they can't do the same thing that they were going to do because these leaks are out? But there's a big debate. And again, if you didn't see that show, we talked about how it could be the good guys, it could be the bad guys, it could be the bad guys trying to be good guys. We don't know. Because it's so weird that the media is letting it out. And by that, I mean they can hide a laptop story and basically have every single news agency not covered if they don't want to. This is being covered by everyone. The leaks is being covered, which automatically people go, oh, then it's a distraction. But at the same time, it really is doing damage. It's doing damage with other countries. And maybe that was the purpose. Maybe it was done on purpose to harm us. We are now having at least like 5 different countries that are about to switch over. Remember, there were countries that were in the middle that were not supporting Russia or the U.S. or China or the U.S., and now there's countries that are distancing themselves from us. So and Macron just recently, they basically said that they were going to distance from us after meeting with Xi. So there's a lot of weird stuff going on here. But a shovel and a blue bucket in hand, a Ukrainian soldier climbs out of the trench he was digging, which would be part of the new defense line if Bakhmut fell to Vlad's forces. Which, if we believe what the leaks are saying, then it probably will. If we were to assume that some of those leaks are true, then Bakhmut is about to be Vlad's completely. But again, it's, everybody's debating about it. After around 9 months of fierce combat, Russian troops, including Wagner paramilitary fighters, hold about 2/3 of the eastern city. Kiev is preparing for an eventual loss of Bakhmut, which it fears could put the other cities in the Donbas region, including Sovyansk and Kramatorsk, closer to Moscow's reach. We are on the second line of defense, and that's where our guys would take position if the enemy launched a massive assault, explains 23-year-old Sergeant Andrea. It says that deep trenches have replaced agricultural furrows in the farmlands stretching around his men, around 1 kilometer away from the front. Each trench is made for 8 soldiers. These small sections of about 100 meters, or 330 feet, interconnect to form longer defense lines. Poplar trunks held together by wire and coated with mud and tires to reinforce the roofs of the trenches shelters. There's a whole technique to it because shells can go 1.6 meters deep into the ground. Below that, soldiers should be relatively protected. In this war of attrition, the plan is to wait for the Russians to exhaust their resources. On the other side of the front, Russia is doing just the same. The Kremlin expects UKR, which has resisted its assault all winter long, to launch a new offensive. So that's what's really kind of crazy is they are still in the coldest kind of parts of their year. Even though we're getting into April, it's now warming up. So they were fighting through like the coldest and freakiest flipping temperatures out there. I wonder how bad this is going to get now that there's a planned offensive, that the ground is going to harden up. You're going to be able to use tanks. You're going to be able to use all the stuff that you couldn't in the muddy and crappy times of the year. I wonder how bad this is going to get in the next couple months. Dex, do you kind of question the same thing? Like, where's this? If they're going to do a huge offensive, we're about to see some big news.
Certainly. And it's interesting, though, because that big offensive has now been not necessarily postponed, but they're having to change it. Like all of a sudden they've got to shift because of these leaks. At least that's what they're saying. And it's interesting to see Russia come out and say specifically that this is all being used against them. When in reality, a lot of it that's coming out looks bad for the U.S. And there's a lot of it that is pretty harmful for the U.S. So I don't know that's what makes this so interesting. And that's what makes us question, like, why did this happen? Why, who is responsible for it? What was the decision made? And then why is the media continuously covering it? I mean, like yesterday we had like every angle on this leak caused that problem. This leak caused that problem. This leak said that. It was like everywhere. We had it all. And we're continuing to get it. They're still talking about it. So it's not like they shut it down. They could have. They certainly have done that with other topics that they didn't want to talk about. They all get together and don't talk about it. So there's something behind this. There is meaning behind this. And, it may be that, Russia's point of view on this is correct. It might, but it seems to me that there's something else at play here.
Some interesting debates going on in the comments. Linda says the world won't end abruptly. It's the beginning of the end. Still many years left. I actually believe that too. Lisa said you're in denial. If you're denial to read The Great Reset, there is no afterlife. The only way out is up, I believe is what they said. I'm paraphrasing slightly. I guess I wouldn't assume that people are in denial about that. I don't know if you mean the Great Reset in a biblical fashion or the Great One referencing what they are talking about as far as this plan goes, because there is a actual plan called that, the Great and the Reset, and that's what we've been talking about for a long time. So most of the people here, that's like, they've read it, or they've seen it so many times that they're moved on to what, today's current news is. I guess I just don't assume what everybody else is in denial about, but I do see what is happening right now, and I think it's the beginning of something else. Like, I don't think there will be nukes that wipe us all off the earth. I think there will probably be, if anything, a nuke that ends up, a tactical nuke that ends up wiping out a couple cities, and then it starts a hot war that goes for years and years, and then starts a whole new system, and then everybody ends up under one umbrella. That's the fear I have, is that there would be a conventional war, a great war of epic proportions, and that at the very end of it, we have different people visually leading us. We know that we have different leaders than we do now already, but we would have different people kind of rise up and different people fall down, and we would be ruled by different rules. Our lives would change forever. It'd be the beginning of this new era, and it's really freaky if you realize their goals they're not going to give up on, and no one is really fighting them at the very top. At least that's what it seems like. Some believe that the whole reason why we're divided this hardcore is because the very elite at the very top are fighting the other elite at the very top, and they have conflicting agendas, and it's really up to who can win up there, right? Either way, us down here at the bottom, we're going to lose a lot of our freedoms. So it is very unfortunate. Before we move on, just make sure to go check out marfooglenews.com/prep. Perfect time to, obviously, if there are things that are even possible, whether that be a regional storm or an earthquake or a tornado, wherever you are, there's most likely one of those. If we don't have an STHF, it is good to have extra survival food. Most Americans have about 3 days of food in their fridge, and that's pretty crazy. So make sure to go over and check out marfooglenews.com/prep. They have $200 off on the 3-month supply of food. You do not need a special code for this because our link is the code. If you use that, you will get the $200 off on a 3-month supply. That means you can bulk up for extremely affordably. So make sure to go check that out. It's freeze-dried. It will last 25 years, and you'll be safe against inflation for that long, too. Obviously, freeze-dried food has gone up, and it's actually tripled in the last 3 years. If it triples again, you'll have 22 years left if you bought it today, and you will be safe against that inflation. This is really good. Again, you just add water and cook with water, and boom, you bring back most of the flavor. Freeze-dried takes out every single water molecule, which preserves the flavor. This is again, it preserves a lot more of the flavor than dehydration. But if you can afford something like this, I'd highly recommend getting into dehydration. It's cheaper to get into, and it's a lot easier to learn. There are Marfoogle family members that can teach you to do it low budget style. And again, we want to put out more stuff. So if you can't just, buy it and get it done, that we teach you how to do it if you can't, because not everybody's on the same boat right now, and we know that people are struggling. So that's why we've connected you over on marfooglenews.com/friends, which we're adding to, and we're going to add some dehydrators, some canners, some good channels that will teach you how to do that, so you can do it at a low price and do it, again, at your own pace. Go to marfooglenews.com/prep. That will help support us, though, here at the channel, and it will get you a huge discount as well. They have smaller packages. You can get month, you can get 2 weeks, you can get 72-hour kit. They have all sorts of great stuff, so go check it out. And then Russia says that the U.S. intelligence leaks may be fake, part of hybrid war against it. So they're even saying that this might be something where it's essentially something that is done on purpose. Dex, do you want to go over what the Russian deputy said?
Yeah, so here's yet another version of every, and we all want to know, like, why, who is behind it, and what is the real purpose of these leaks? Because it wasn't just an accident. This wasn't a piece of paper falling out of the car in the streets, that has the secret details. These were published. These were put out. These were top secret. Some of them were non-foreign, not allowed to be shared with our foreign allies, even with top secret clearance. So they're suggesting, and this is what I was alluding to earlier, they're suggesting that this has been done as part of a conflict against them. It's part of the actual war itself. I'm not sure how much of what we've reported from these leaks really supports that. Maybe the missile launch at the UK reconnaissance flight, maybe that one looks a little bit like it. But a lot of the stuff that has come out has certainly not been pretty for ourselves. So if this is along the lines of something that we were intentionally doing, and we were doing it for the sake of improving our position in a conflict through a third party being UKR, I don't know that I'm buying it. It just seems like there's a lot more damage control we're having to do with this, and it could have been done a lot differently to achieve that type of result. So it makes, I wouldn't expect anything less from our adversary to say that whatever we're doing is to hurt them. That certainly would be their position no matter what, aside from them just pointing the finger and laughing at us and say, you got your security so lax, you're letting top secret documents out. But the damage control that we got going on with South Korea, with other countries, even the UK and whatnot, about what we were doing from an espionage point of view against our allies. There's a lot that's going on with this, and a lot that's going on. They're probably more upset about, say, those numbers, but even that was proven that the numbers when they came out and that were talked about were actually the potentially the fake part of it, because they were flip-flopped from what was originally published. So and that's something I could see their point of view on, but that's not what the document said. And at least the originally published documents that came out from the I guess the original sources on Discord and others. So I don't know. Again, I don't think that this is really what it is, but I don't know why. Like, to me, it seems like it's intentional, but it seems like the reason why is either somebody's trying to harm the U.S. or somebody's trying to harm the people in power in the U.S. One of the two, and both are bad. And that's what it looks like, in my opinion. I don't have any other insight, and we won't know more until maybe they figure out who was actually responsible for it, and then what motives they may or may not have had.
Well, as far as who did it, it's still up in the air. Folks are going to keep debating until we get something solid, and then even if we get something solid, people won't believe what the answer is anyways. Either way, something is going on above us, and it's probably way bigger than anybody could ever imagine, but like everybody says, it's not going to matter very shortly here unless it really stops something. Things are going really, really bad. Schaefer Girl, was it Schaefer Girl? Says, are you going to the club after this? No. Is it because of a dress shirt? No, but I will show you. It's kind of funny. No, I just put this on to cover my Inside Out Game Boy shirt, which is normally not forwards, but since the camera's backwards and it's inside out, it actually reads right. But yeah, that's to which, if you can remember from your acute sense of memory, I wore yesterday. So pull out a wrinkly shirt, cover it up, and you're good as new. I've been working in this shirt for 2 days straight. So let's see here. They say I clean up nice. And then the Elon Musk stuff. This is trippy. Okay, so first of all, there's been a lot of stuff. If you haven't seen, Jacob Israel has actually been covering some of the other crazier stuff that Elon has been saying about just the different memes he's putting out about space and all sorts of other things. But this is specific. So Twitter has been posting a label on certain news agencies, and they posted a label onto NPR, and it says that it is state funded, right? NPR was pissed off about that. NPR's like, we're not state funded. Why did you do that? It says, because of the label, NPR is quitting Twitter across all of our 50-plus accounts. Our executives say that the government-funded media label calls into question our editorial independence and undermines our credibility. Some wonder if this will cause a chain reaction among other news organizations. What's your reaction? Defund NPR. So it says if they aren't government funded, they surely won't object to being government defunded, right? And it says NPR literally said federal funding is essential to public radio on their own website, now taken down. Look, this is the NPR website. Federal funding is essential to public radio's service to the American public, and its continuation is critical for both stations and program. So, by the way, NPR has taken a turn over the last couple of years. Same with BBC. Do you remember when NPR used to kind of be in the middle, or at least we thought it was? Same with BBC. BBC, like, I remember when I actually thought, like, oh, BBC was, like, not this way, not that way. Did you guys ever think that? Dex, did you ever kind of consider that, like, 10 years ago? And we're talking about before all this stuff started getting crazy and where people started dumping their friends over if they were left or right or this or that. It used to be that kind of NPR was better, and maybe some older folks probably went along that conclusion earlier, but it used to be somewhat, both sides.
I would agree on the BBC side. NPR, at least in my personal opinion of it, it was better than it is now, but it was always seemed like it had a slant to it. That was just my opinion, but wasn't a big listener. Even I'm going back to like my young adult days, thinking about what it was like back then. And, I did listen to a few different things on there from time to time when listening to radio was actually a thing we did. Not that really happens that much anymore. I guess some people do. But yeah, BBC definitely used to be a lot more, used to love BBC. And I think others have said that in chat too.
Well, then Elon Musk says, guess they won't mind losing federal funding in that case. So, Labyrinth Spicer, I will defund NPR when I get to Congress, 100%. That's funny. So, he's shaking it up. If you haven't seen some of the other things that happened, BBC did a hold on here. Dex, can you explain some of the BBC argument between him and this Snively reporter? And I know you got the highlights. I'll come in just a second. I got to switch a battery.
Yeah, so there was late last night. Matter of fact, right after the end of our show, there was a live Spaces where Elon was being interviewed by a BBC reporter. And the reporter was like calling him out, like trying to catch him. And Elon just completely eviscerated him, in my opinion. The reporter was like, well, there's all of this, on Twitter, there seems to be an uptick in hate speech. And he was like, okay, well, tell me your examples. What are you seeing? And he's like, well, he couldn't come up with a single example. And he just kept going back and forth with it. And he just all of a sudden started to cave. And he was like, can we just move on to the next subject? And even the next one, he got, his butt handed to him again. But, long story short, I think, there is an obvious side or bias across the media and across a particular spectrum of the political narrative that doesn't like him now because he bought Twitter and because he's trying to make it at least more open than it was. I wouldn't say it's completely free speech because there's plenty of things that he's done that aren't. But it's definitely not cited in this. He's definitely saying that it's not cited in what he's doing. He's, if he's going to censor, he's going to censor as much on one side as he is on the other, to try to have it be an equal playground for folks to speak, or an equal public square for people to speak. But there are people that don't like that. There are people in power, and obviously a lot of the media doesn't like that. And so that's why it's in our overflow every night. There's always an article or two that's just completely going after him. And you just know they're just like spinning up anything they can to try to make him look bad.
Well, so,
if somebody, does something stupid with their Tesla, and they blame it on him and they write a big story about it. It's just like anytime they can bash Elon now. He is public enemy number one to the media and to the at least number top five to the media and to one particular side of the political spectrum.
So, and that makes a lot of us look at him and say, okay, a lot of us root for the underdog, especially people like me. When they see this happening, we've felt it happening to us. We have seen crappy articles and like these fake things being said about us, and you see it, and you know that this is like BS. So first of all, I have seen on Twitter has not become more hateful, and he basically talked to this guy and said, well. He says, well, I have personally seen it become more hateful and this and that since you've done different things. And he goes, okay, can you give me an exact example? And the guy goes, well, this is the best part about this highlight, this conversation that they had. He kept questioning, and this guy obviously had a list of attack questions. It was all friendly at first, and then he just went into, he's like, why'd you remove this? And you could tell he was trying to catch Elon and blindside him with this thing. And he says, why do you, there's more hateful information, and why'd you remove the COVID thing? Well, once he said that there's more hateful stuff, he says, okay, what have you seen? He goes, I haven't seen it. He goes, I haven't seen anything. What have you exactly seen? He goes, I've seen, I've seen it more likely, I can't give you an example. He goes, no, you need to give me an example. If you're telling everybody that there's more hateful content, then give me, please, one example of hateful content. He goes, well, it's more in the For You thing, blah, blah, blah. And then he keeps questioning. He says that it's more in the For You. And then he goes, okay, what'd you see in your For You? And he goes, well, I don't actually use For You. I don't use it anymore because of that. So he literally says, basically, he doesn't even use the For You tab of it because it's so hateful. He just completely got him caught in BS. And this was just, once you hear the back and forth, you go, oh my gosh, this guy was just reading what was wrote, and he couldn't go off script. He could not. And he did it in such a nasty and attack way. Like, that's, I see the other side of it, where Elon Musk, his company is over in China, and there's stuff there. There's actually, the reporter asked one question that I did agree with. All the rest, though, were just like side-winded attacks. And Elon Musk turned it around on him every time. He said, well, basically talking about misinformation and how there'll be more misinformation if you don't control it. Well, okay. Who decides what is misinformation? Who gets to be the arbitrator of misinformation? Does the BBC get to be the arbitrator? Have you put out false information that turned out fake later? And he goes, well, this interview is not about me. What's BS is this is happening across the board to everything that is truthful. It's not even an attack against right or left. It's an attack against truth. They are pushing in a system that is absolutely tearing apart our values of everything for the last 100 years is being destroyed. They are trying to break it down, and guess what? They will build it up again, and it's going to be a horrendous Build Back Better. That Build Back Better, that means something. All of this stuff means something. They're doing it right out in the open, and it's really scary. I would check out his Twitter again. And the thing is I've seen the other things. I've seen the arguments of why, like one of my Fugel family members, Able-Body, pointed out a lot of the crazy stuff and like why he's not a good guy, right? At the same time, some of us have agreed, like even she was like, man, these $50,000 houses that he's making, or these $10,000 houses, she was just like, shoot, I want one. So it's hard not to root for Elon when he's being attacked like this, because we have too. And it's hard to say that it's all manufactured, because when you hear it in real life, it's hard to not say that conversation wasn't a blindsided attack. And the dude totally won that, and that snively reporter was just nasty. Unfortunately, it was on during our show. I have linked that over on my Twitter, and you can go find it. It again was a really great. I would recommend that everybody listen to the whole thing and listen to when it went south. And then the reporter, after he finished his last wrote down question, he just started packing things up. This was an in-person meeting on Spaces. So it wasn't like they were both on their phone on Spaces. They were on his phone on Spaces, and him are like right in front of a phone, and they're sitting in chairs across from each other in like this warehouse place. After he's done, he just starts packing up, then tweets and says, he goes, "I've never had this happen where my guest, after we're finished interviewing, he's now asking and talking to people in Twitter and asking Q&A." And he starts packing up his gear and his video gear and all of his stuff around Elon. Well, Elon is basically still talking to the people and taking random people in Spaces. And it was random people. So I thought that was another like positive point. And then this guy literally is like packing his stuff up and just leaving, and left him. Didn't have a single ounce of creativity to like keep the interview going. He's just like bounced out. So that's how you know it was a scripted thing. He was only approved these things, and they were going after him. The BBC and all these other news, they just want to attack these things because they want to discredit everything that is trying to turn things around. But then again, look at Elon. He has now merged Twitter with X. There's some bad things down the road too if we go that way. It's almost choosing which evil path you want to go down for the future of like who runs us, right? He's doing Neuralink. He's doing all sorts of stuff, and it's scary that either way, whoever ends up ruling us, there's no like awesome hero savior that's gonna save the world. He is the closest thing that people find as like a hero next to T-Man, because he's sticking up for free speech. Free speech should be ultimate. There's no, if something's slightly sexist, you ban it? No. If something's slightly this, no. You can't do that. Let adults choose what they want to hear. People are better at judging than the media, and that was actually one of his quotes, and I thought that was better. So make sure to go check out that interview. We'll link it on the website as well. Dex, can we get the interview on the end of web only? And then let's go over the rest of that. We can do it afterwards. Let's go over the web only. There's a lot of stuff here. But before you do, I do want to say thank you to Stephen McMahon. Thank you, Jalen Mason. I appreciate you. Pam B says, thanks, Marf, Dex, and Wages. Hey, thank you. And then Liz Smith, thank you for the massive support. Says, you are amazing. I appreciate that. And Matthew Michael, people are making apocalypse jokes like there's no like there's no tomorrow. Oh, that's so bad. Matthew Michael, dad joke of the day. I'm going to have a button for that, by the way. We're going to have a sound effect board for that. You got an award today. I just can't give it to you yet. So Matthew Michael, tune in tomorrow. All right, Dex, let's go over the web only.
Yeah, lots going on. So head over to marfooglenews.com, click on the thumbnail for the show, or open up the show notes link that's down in the description on YouTube and Rumble. It's easy to get to. You're going to get to all the news we just covered. You'll get to those tweets that we talked about with Elon, and then you find this yellow bar. It says overflow. This is the rest of the story. So lots happening in here. First off, the first sections, there's something kind of, you take it for how you want. CV is back, apparently. There's another variant, and you can find out what country it's in that's causing them to go back to the way things used to be, so to speak. So if you want to know more about that, go to the website and take a look. The little bit of the political spectrum is here. There's even some new names potentially throwing their hat in the mix. There's a major new lawsuit out that's going to be pretty interesting. There's actually a couple of them that are out. Stuff going on with a massive homeless encampment near Beverly Hills. Of course, you've got the Elon story, and just the headline alone, Musk dodges questions. You see how they are with him. And then, of course, they put out a Twitter blue as approving users with, certain words in their handles, etc. So they're quick to throw as much shade on him as they can after that interview. Clydesdales are getting canceled in certain areas. No surprise. There's a lot of people upset about Anheuser-Busch, and I'll leave it at that. You probably know what I'm talking about. The other stuff that's going on, we definitely have some of the stuff happening in the political spectrum. There was this horrible event that happened in UKR around a particular person who was unalived in a bad way and then put on display. That's been talked about. Who's sending more rifles and more munitions? Canada and others. That's all in here. We definitely have Zelensky's comments on that as well, and even a story about a Russian YouTuber who hit himself in the face using a rocket launcher, or specifically an anti-tank weapon, but he had it backwards. He had it turned around the wrong way. I think you need to pay attention to the way the arrows point when you're using that type of stuff, especially if it's your first time. And if you're a YouTuber, man, don't embarrass yourself like that. So that and so much more, even Arnold Schwarzenegger in the news, he's filling potholes in LA because they won't do it. And then he got tired of it. So he's literally out there with a shovel and some asphalt and filling a pothole. But that and so much more, it's all there on the website. It's the rest of the story. We put it together for you every night. It's on the website. It's with the show notes, with the show. You can get to it by clicking the show notes link that's in the description below, or just go to marfooglenews.com and click on the thumbnail for the show.
Dude, Arnold is getting old. What you have to be an older person to do that kind of stuff. Screw it, I'm just going to go do it myself. Grab a shovel. I used to like Arnold before he was the governor. It's hard to like anybody in Hollywood now. It's crazy how extreme a lot of people have gotten into politics. I really prefer to stay out of the politics with my friends and family. Like, it's just better. If you haven't noticed, it destroys relationships now because people are now brainwashed into thinking, oh, this person thinks differently than me. I have to hate him. It's pretty stupid. The other part in there, the head video, go if that's at your own risk. The Bush thing, I mean, just to say it straight up, if you really don't know what that is, go to the website. But I mean, it's been going on for days, weeks, I think. But they hired a man to woman, trans person, to do the Bud commercials or the Bud cans. They even put them on the cans. And everybody said this was just absolutely horrid, and they dropped it. They first put out all the stuff that their entire marketing team was fired. That was apparently debunked, but at the same time, now the numbers are in, and they are now down like $4 billion. Their market cap has dropped like just an extreme amount. So people really aren't doing it, and you can see it. I know of at least 2 places here that have totally taken all of the Anheuser-Busch drinks out of everywhere. I know that one of my friend's brother, who owns a local bar, they have removed the taps and they have them taped over the ones that are actually on the tap things. They're not using them anymore, and they're throwing away the kegs. So people are taking it pretty seriously. It's pretty crazy. I don't know if people are like that in Georgia. Dex, are people there doing it?
Oh yeah, they're like that in Georgia for sure. But the interesting thing I found was just looking at the labels they own, or looking at the label you might want to consume, and then realizing it's owned by Anheuser-Busch, because they're such a large conglomerate, and they've bought up so many of the labels that are out there. You'd be surprised at it's not just one brand. There's a ton of brands,
like 30
that label. Yeah,
isn't it? Somebody said Jack Daniels was part of them too, right?
It might be. It wouldn't surprise me.
There's a bunch. There's lists. If you want to see the list, they're all over Twitter. People are tweeting those out. The one that really crazes me is that Dylan guy. If you saw the videos in the very first place, he was literally, I mean, it looked like a parody video. It seemed like he was making fun of turning, right? I'm like, I don't see. And what I think happened is the guy did a parody video, like he thought it was funny and was doing it as a joke. And then people in our culture were like, oh, right on, we support you. They did not see the humor in it and just literally said, oh, we support you 100%. And they thought he was like being, genuine. And then I think a light bulb went off or something. I know, I'm in Seattle. There have been trans people before this whole thing kind of got really big. And I at least know one person that has said that they are basically like, they're not, if they saw them in person, they would tell them off. And this is a trans person saying that. because they think that they're fake and that they're not actually that way. But who knows? As far as that guy, he has been offered a Tampax sponsorship. That to me just seems a little kooky. Dex, go ahead.
Just to clarify, Jack Daniels is owned by Brown-Forman. It's not owned by
good.
them,
Okay.
which is an American company still, unlike Anheuser-Busch.
Yeah. Anheuser-Busch has like 30 labels there. All right. Well, you can make your own choice on that. But go look at what's happening. It's nuts. It's been going on for like a week and a half or something, a week. All right. And thank you guys. I appreciate everybody that came today. Thank you over on D Live. Thank you everybody that participated over there. Scooby-Doo Right, Bumpity Beer Juice. We have Johnson, Scooby-Doo Right, Caw, and Foogle Fam, Hug from Above, Love from God Above. Well, thank you, Beer Juice, Kimbria, Skyhouse, Priscilla R, and Lou Rock. Thank you guys. Ecto1. Thank you, and everyone that made it here tonight. I appreciate you guys. And over on YouTube, it looks like, thank you again, Pam B. Liz Smith. Yeah, looks like Liz Smith, you are our top supporter tonight. Thank you. It is now time for the shoutro. Dex, thank you for your service tonight.
Much love. Great job, brother.
It's not an outro. It's not a shoutro. Wait. It's not an outro. It's not a shout out. It's a shoutro.
It's like a wonderland, oh, no girl's better than what I got, though. Hey, it's like a wonderland, oh, no girl's better than what I got, though. Hey, it's like a wonderland, oh, no girl's better than what I got, though. Hey, it's like a wonderland, oh, no than what. It's like a wonderland, no girl's better than what I got, though. Hey, it's like a wonderland, oh, no girl's better than what I got, though. Hey, it's like a wonderland, oh, no girl's better than what I got, though. Hey, it's like a wonderland, oh, no girl's better than what I got, though. Oh, yeah, na, na. I don't know where I say. I got the Jake Gallo all Bugatti. Oh no, back now, everybody got me. Balling in the box, in the week on the wiggle. Bringing on with the harvest, that's why I figure. Right now, I with the truth, I rest. Running on the fumes here now, I sit up on now. I with a hippie, have a gypsy. Greater than a great one, make a gal firestorm. Bring it on down, do it up day and do it up now. It's like a wonderland, oh, no girl's better than what I got, though. Hey, it's like a wonderland, oh, no girl's better than what I got, though. Hey, it's like a wonderland, oh, no girl's better than what I got, though. Hey, it's like a wonderland, oh, no girl's better than what I got, though. Hey, it's like a wonderland, oh, no girl's better than what I got, though. Hey, oh no, I said I'll bring it on down. Everybody really wanna know me now. I said a J on like Nana J on I said a bone on back, now that we not rich. I said a Susan Dick, I still heard more. I get down the other one, no. I said a Willie on, everybody Willie on, and we know she fuck out, bring it on down. Oh now back, now go it back. I said a Ricky Boo, I make me pop out and back it down. I said woo. Everybody high, oh, hey, but everybody out there, everybody from Ohio, hey, 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 hey. Listen, I said listen, I thank you, I listen, I said listen, I thank you, I listen, I said listen, I said thank you, I listen. I said a listen, 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 I said a listen. It's like I won the lotto. No girl's better than what I got though. Hey, it's like I won the lotto. No girl's better than what I got though. Hey, it's like I won the lotto. No girl's better than what I got though. Hey, it's like I won the lotto. No girl's better than what I got though. Hey, it's like I won the lotto. No girl's better than what I got though. I got the button and the dogs in the winning hunt, potato Biden, daddy on the lake. I say I know where to get it on the other one. And the urban size question, the gutter one. But it will bone back down with the gutter one. Hey, and the little hole, I'll be back again. I did a week back with the whole damn 3,000. Everybody doing that now, we housing. Bush house, and then the other housing. Oh, getting kids to let it be about. I said I'm on down.